Throughout the course of the Dragon Ball story, the concept of death has seen a lot of play. Originally starting out as a permanent problem, it eventually turned into more of an inconvenience, as the Dragon Balls and other plot devices that were introduced made it to where our characters could be brought back from the dead time and time again. In the last video in the series, I talked about every time our main character Goku died in the story. This time, I'm going to be focusing on his best friend and the face of death in the franchise, the Sean Bean of the Dragon Ball franchise if you would, with that being Krillin, the short Shaolin-inspired disciple of Master Roshi, who has fought by Goku's side for decades, usually without much luck, especially against the more powerful foes. So what is every time Krillin died? In this video, I'm going to discuss that. Hey guys, if you're new to this channel, then make sure to subscribe and enable all notifications, so you can see all of my videos and community posts right away when they come out. Now let's begin with the original Dragon Ball. From the moment of Krillin's introduction in the story, he was an integral character in the franchise, originally being antagonistic towards Goku, as well as a cheater, but eventually he learned respect and became Goku's best friend. This is why his first death was such a sad and devastating moment for fans. It was also a shocking moment as the 22nd tournament had just concluded, with Tien narrowly defeating Goku. But the celebration was cut short by Tambourine, the son of Demon King Piccolo, and it was abundantly clear that Krillin was completely outmatched, as Tambourine quickly killed him with a single kick to the head, kicking off the Piccolo arc and bringing Krillin's death count to 1. Goku would go on to defeat Tambourine and King Piccolo before making a deal with Kami to wish Krillin back in exchange for training with him. Fortunately, Krillin would be safe from death for the remainder of Dragon Ball. However, as fans know, there will be a lot more to come in Dragon Ball Z. Now, despite some very close calls in his fight against Nappa and then Vegeta, Krillin would be one of the few survivors in the conflict with the Saiyans, and would then go on the trip to Namek in order to use their Dragon Balls to wish back his dead friends. Once on the planet, he would have even more close calls against the Ginyu Force, being saved from death by Goku with the use of a Sensu Bean. This luck would run out, however, when he came face to face with Frieza, or the scrawny lizard man, as Harold likes to call him. First, Krillin was impaled by Frieza, after he transformed into his second form, with a power level over 1 million. Fortunately, he was able to be saved by Dende with his healing powers. However, after getting hit with Goku's Spirit Bomb, Frieza was pretty pissed off, and wanted to make sure that Krillin's death stuck. So he shot him with a beam, threw him up into the sky, and made him explode before Goku's eyes. What a way to go. And that brings his death counter to 2. Of course, Krillin would go on to be wished back by the Namekian Dragon Balls after the fight with Frieza came to an end. However, when we look at the alternate timelines, he wouldn't stay alive for long, because in the original Cell timeline and Future Trunks timeline, Goku died of the heart virus, and the androids number 17 and 18 would wreak havoc on the Earth. Now, the Z-Fighters rushed in to try and stop them, but one by one they were all killed off, with the exception of Gohan. And unfortunately, this includes Krillin. Now, it's unclear as to why the androids didn't spare him as they did in the main timeline. Perhaps Krillin was more actively trying to stop them, or they simply had a more evil disposition overall. Either way, the power of attraction certainly didn't help him in this case, and I'll be tallying up these deaths at the end of the video. However, fortunately for our main timeline Krillin, he wouldn't meet his end in this arc, because Android 18 was miring his hard-earned training gains, and decided she would rather kiss him than kill him. So Krillin went on to fight another day. This leads to the Buu saga and Krillin's next death, as well as the deaths of nearly every other character. This came when Super Buu escaped from the hyperbolic time chamber and decided that it was time to eat. In the anime, Krillin bravely stayed behind and tried to stall Buu, while his family escaped. Unfortunately, this didn't work out, as not only was he transformed into chocolate, but so was everyone else on the lookout, save for Dende, who was thrown down by Popo in order to establish the pecking order. And after serving as a calorie and ki-filled snack for Buu, this brings Krillin's death counter to 3. Now, moving on to Dragon Ball Super, Krillin was one of the lucky ones in this series, as he managed to survive every arc, even despite his own incompetence in the Tournament of Power. Now, we could technically count his erasure by Zeno in the afterlife of the Trunks timeline as a second death, but I'm not gonna get that technical, or at least theological. However, I will still get a little technical, as at the end of that arc, Trunks created a whole new timeline. A new timeline where all the deaths of his original timeline still happened. adding 3 more to the overall tally at the end of this video. However, there is still one other series where Krillin died. One where the audience went on a grand tour of the Dragon Ball universe, at least for half an arc, in Dragon Ball GT. Now for those of you who didn't instantly click off this video or rush to the comments to tell me that this isn't canon, Krillin's first death in GT came at the hands of his own brother-in-law, Android 17, during the Super 17 arc. Here come a bunch of 17s. Due to the connection between Android 17 and Hellfighter 17, the original 17 was being negatively influenced and began to commit evil deeds, such as attacking a city and killing innocents. When Android 18 and Krillin tried to talk him down, Krillin was killed by 17 in a rather sad moment. That would have been more impactful had the series actually used him before this, but it was Goku time after all, so we know that wasn't gonna happen. Toei executives were probably like, use other characters than Goku and the Saiyans over their dead bodies. And that's about what we got. But Krillin's final death in the story came at the very end of Dragon Ball GT, when time skipped forward 100 years to the tournament featuring Goku Jr. and Vegeta Jr. At this point, presumably all of the Z fighters were dead, save for the likely exception of Master Roshi on account of being immortal. Now it is possible that being his student, Krillin could have been given immortality by Roshi during this time, as we know that he has access to mystical artifacts that allow for this. And we know of several other humans just as old and some older than Roshi himself, such as the Crane Hermit, Mercenary Tao, and his older sister, Fortune Teller Baba, who were never said to have been immortal. But considering how this and A Hero's Legacy were depicted, I'm assuming that he's long dead, because in the end, everything has to be about Goku. Who cares about the 100 years he wasn't around, right guys? So with that being said, that was every time Krillin died in this franchise. And now when we add up our score, the death counter for the main timeline continuity Krillin reads 3. However, when we consider the other timelines and Dragon Ball GT, Krillin's final death counter is approximately 15, which lives up to the reputation he has as a character. But as we know, this is the Dragon Ball franchise, which means that there's a high probability that more deaths are going to be coming for Krillin in the future. Whether it comes at the hands of a villain such as Moro, old age, or choking on a chestnut, Death is waiting patiently for his next meeting with Krillin and the rest of the Z fighters. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.